An incredible story of survival. David Van Syke was never supposed to make it to his 3rd birthday.
In 1972, the Spokane Valley man was in a gas explosion where he was so badly burned, doctors never thought he'd survive. He's been through so many surgeries, he lost count long ago. And soon he'll be facing a brain surgery to repair his skull. KXLY4's Annie Bishop is here with David's story.
And it's a story perhaps you've always wanted to know but didn't want to ask. David is not hard to miss. In fact, you may have seen him at the mall or a Scyoc game. He is a huge Scyoc fan. In fact, people stare all the time, and you probably will too, until you meet David and hear his remarkable story.
If you need to take a second look, David Van Syke will understand. He's used to people staring, but it never gets easier.
I'm always stared at. I mean, I've had situations where parents will see me and then they'll leave and go get their kid and bring their kid back so they can show me to their kid.
He's been called names. People confront him simply because of the way he looks.
I just want to crack him on it, give him a good whipping.
David knows you've probably never seen anyone with such severe burns. Most don't survive, and if they do, they don't want to be in public. Not David. He walks across the street with the confidence of a man with a black belt in Taekwondo.
I figured if people can't accept the way I am, then that's their problem.
It's that spirit and drive that has kept him alive when most thought he would die.
A lot of crying and a lot of praying.
April 3rd, 1972, a day David's mom, Agnes, will never forget. The day her innocent, hazel-eyed 2.5-year-old boy began the fight of his life.
David was outside playing with the girl next door, and he went in to get his tricycle.
As David walked into their garage, the pilot light under a hot water tank ignited a nearby gas can. The explosion was so fierce and so hot.
It was horrible because all the skin on his hand just came off like a glove.
David was rushed to the University of Southern California Medical Center with 3rd-degree burns to 85% of his body.
We waited in the hallway, and the doctors came out and said that they didn't give David an hour to live.
Hours faded into days, and days became months, and David was still alive. He spent the next year in the hospital undergoing surgery after surgery. In 1973, burn care was a novelty. Doctors experimented using pig and cadaver skin. His care so unique, a reporter from the LA Times wrote an article about a new skin grafting technique doctors used.
I went to school in the hospital. I spent many birthdays, Christmases, Easters, you name it. I spent some part of my time there.
And it's there where he met Robin Williams and the cast of Happy Days. Through it all, his mom never left his side.
I made him his own quilts. He had everything. I mean, he had his own little location. Even the doctors went to him for candy and food.
When David finally left the hospital for rehab 18 months after the accident, his doctor wrote, "Through the superb skills of USC Medical Center and several minor miracles, David has survived these injuries, which probably represents something of a world's record." By the time David turned 18, he'd been through more than 100 operations.
They tried to rebuild my ears at one time, but that surgery didn't go too well. They forgot to tell me not to lay on my side after the surgery, so that kind of messed it up.
The burns never kept David from just being a kid, swimming, altar boy, fishing, and making it into the mentally gifted program at school. He has 2 black belts as well. Over the next 10 years, however, the burns continue to ravage his body, this time reaching his brain.
I was diagnosed with brain cancer back in July of 2001.
Once again, David went back into the operating room. It took 5 surgeons and 17.5 hours to remove the tumor. They cut his skull to get to the cancer, covering it back up with a muscle from his back and an artery from his neck. He's survived again.
He's a strong person.
And through it all, he puts himself last, taking care of his family, friends, and daughter, who now lives with her mom on the west side of the state, running summer camps for children with burns, inspiring them to keep fighting too. His selflessness still baffles his mom.
I don't know why. There's a kid that does everything he can for everybody else. He doesn't stop until he makes things right for somebody.
Even when he's in excruciating pain.
From like a 1 to a 10, I'm probably about a 6 or 7, you know, but I mean, I have days that are like 27.
He's constantly taking morphine and uses medical marijuana to manage the pain, but it never goes away. On Saturday mornings, you can find him at a Spokane meeting in the basement of a local church. He goes for the support because his fight isn't over.
He suffered so much.
The pain is so fierce, he fears the tumor has returned. Last month, he drove to Seattle to meet with a surgeon.
You know, I'm just thinking about my family, thinking about lots of things, you know. Thinking if I'll ever get to see my daughter.
He leaves without any answers. David is now waiting for doctors to examine his latest MRI and CAT scans. Even if the cancer hasn't come back, he'll need another brain surgery to repair his fragile skull.
Why did it have to be me? You know, why this now? Haven't I suffered enough?
Yes, David, you have. And that's why so many people want to make sure you get through this. He's worried not for himself, but for his family and his daughter he hasn't seen in years. It's tough, but staying positive is his only option.
What am I going to do, quit and just give up? I mean, you don't have a choice.
David doesn't think about his scars much, and perhaps now you aren't either. If you see David, maybe you'll still stare, but not because of his burns, because you now know why. He's a miracle man.
I still have things I want to do in my life, you know. So I'm only 39. It's not time for me to go yet.
And truly an inspiration. We want to thank David, of course, for sharing his remarkable story. David is now meeting with a neurosurgeon in a few months. Hopefully he will have those answers that he's been looking for, and they'll find out whether or not the cancer has returned and exactly how they'll go about repairing the back of his skull.
Wow, he is amazing, and
He truly is.
And this is really expensive.
It is, and you know, he may have to go back to Harborview Medical Center, and that includes driving. He can't fly. And so an account has been set up at U.S. Bank for David. All the details have been put on our website, so all you have to do is go to KXLY.com, and the information is there on how to help David through this tough time.
Thank you for bringing us the story. He is truly amazing.
He is.